Welcome to the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Salmon, integrative nutrition coach. And we talk about health and wellness all the time on this podcast. That's the whole point of this, to really explore all of the ways in which we can live our healthiest life. And we explore that from a multi-generational, multinational perspective. We have data that shows what communities that live to 100 and beyond, 120 and beyond are doing. We know from the research what gives us the highest percentage of likelihood to have a long life, and not just a long life where we're just existing, just being carried along by pharmaceutical drugs or surgeries or whatever, but actually thriving in our life. The keys to longevity are stress reduction, finding purpose, and giving back to the community. And since we know this information, and I know I've personally been talking to people, Black women in particular, who are doing the things. Either I've worked with them or they found their way on their own, and they're on the journey. They're doing all the things for a long, healthy, thriving life, not dealing with any suffering, pain, disease, medication, or whatnot. Yet they still they have this mentality that living beyond 70 is not open to them. God promises in the Bible 70, and that's 70 years. So, the more we tell ourselves that there's a limit to our life, this will actually manifest. And so the question I pose, or what I'm, struggling with or trying to figure out, and what I ask you is like, what is the point of doing all the things for a healthy life if you're not interested in being here, in being present? You're not interested in living, engaging with life, right? It's hard to it just makes no sense to do all the things for a long, healthy life, but then in your mind tell yourself there's a limit on my life. I'm really not interested in staying here longer than 70 or whatever years of age. And I know specifically in the Black community, where we have a 20-year gap in life expectancy just in America. On average, the American population is dying at like 86, 88, around that range last time I checked. And there's a 20-year gap in certain communities for Black people. And that is due to a lot of things. A lot of it we address on this podcast, but it's like, if you are here listening to this podcast, if you're doing the work, if you've worked with me, if you've done any of the free challenges, engaged with any of the content, but still your mind is telling you that my end date is going to be this because of whatever. Maybe your parents died at that age, you had friends, family die at that age, or somehow you think that, when you get older, your friends are going to pass away and you're going to be the only one left, and you're feeling a little down about that. Or maybe you struggled, you had a really tough life in a tough marriage and had a tough divorce, like the guest I have that I'm going to be showing you soon, that I talked to recently. All of this stuff kind of has some folks thinking like, I'm really not interested in staying. They're doing the work, but their subconscious is saying, I'm ready to go at any point, So we don't want to confuse the universe, right? If you're doing all the things to stay, really engage with the fact that there is still life and purpose to be had in this life. And so I recently sat down with Sade, who I'm going to introduce you to, Sade Curry. She's a certified life and relationship coach and the host of the Dating After Divorce podcast. She went through a difficult divorce after a 17-year emotionally abusive marriage. The divorce triggered all of her childhood neglect and abandonment trauma, which led her on a journey to true healing and rebuilding her life after divorce. And honestly, when you listen to her story, I mean, it had me so upset. My blood was boiling when I heard what she went through. And I could completely understand how that could spiral someone into a depression where they just kind of want to give up, and I'm hoping that this episode in particular will encourage you not to give up, because from my perspective, right, you are here until God calls you out of here. And when that happens is because you've already fulfilled the need and the purpose that he has for you in this life, on this planet. So there's really no need to rush it with any kind of thoughts of a limitation on how long you can live, what's happened in the past, the fears of the future, the uncertainty. Get clear on your purpose, get clear on your mission, meditate, pray, be still, and do the work, and find happiness and joy and reduce stress as much as possible along the way, so that you can live in an abundant life, the one that God has promised for you, the one that you are worthy of. That's what I want you to take away from this episode, is that you are worthy. You deserve to be here, and you deserve to be here as long as God sees it fit for you to be here. So don't put limitations on your life. Sade, thank you so much for being here on the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast.
Hi, Samantha. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So one of the keys to longevity that we've been talking about is finding purpose. How does one find purpose after divorcing from someone with which they've built a family and had a whole future planned?
All right. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story, and definitely having a purpose really pulled me out. But I'll tell you a little bit about what happened. I won't go too much into the divorce. Like, the divorce was very contentious. The marriage was very contentious. I was married for 17 years. The general word that's used loosely around the kind of person my ex-husband was is narcissist. He did not have a diagnosis of NPD. So I'm using that word very loosely, but I know that the women who have experienced some of the emotional, psychological abuse or situations in a marriage that I did, they'll kind of understand what I mean by that. So I wanted to use that on the podcast. And so it was very contentious, very acrimonious. At the time of our separation, I was 39, had, children with my ex. So I moved out, not necessarily intending to divorce, but because there needed to be a separation in order to clear up these like really chaotic issues that were going on. And while I was like attending counseling, encouraging him to attend counseling, really trying to put all of it together, he filed for a divorce. I think he was just like, these are too many boundaries. I don't want to change. I don't want to do anything. And so he filed for a divorce. So I found myself like with my kids, living outside the marital home without an income. And it was just really, really hard. I'll say the first 18 months after that was just really awful. The court process was really, really awful. I didn't have access to the family finances because he had, it's sort of like he made the first move. So he had been able to like corral all the finances where I couldn't, get to them. And so even the court process was really hard because then I had to borrow money to hire a lawyer while he was using our money to hire his lawyer, which is nice. That's just kind of lovely. So those are some of the situations that I was in that first year of my divorce. Was really like I was dealing with money issues. I was dealing with taking care of the kids, trying to see them through this. I was dealing with an ex who was doing everything in his power, in a sense, to destroy me and my livelihood and get everything. He did end up with a lot. He ended up with a home and had spent pretty much a ton of our money by the time the court was able to say, okay, let's split it in two. It was like, oh yeah, it's not there anymore. That's great.
Wow.
So in that kind of a situation, I'm so, in a sense, I would say I was blessed with a sense of purpose that saw me through it. Initially, I would say my very first thoughts about purpose came from knowing who I was in the marriage, right? So I had worked really hard in the marriage to support him through, he did have a mental health diagnosis that he did not treat, to support him even with that, to support his work, because he had work issues, to support the children. I knew, and I allowed myself to acknowledge how much I had built, what I had done. What I find is a lot of divorced women look at the person that they were in the marriage and they just criticize themselves. They forget what an amazing woman they must have been to go through all of that. And I think that's the very first thing that I had was I was able to say to myself, I built that, right? My 401k was where we got the money to buy that house. We had a 4,000 square foot house with 7 bedrooms and
Wow.
5 baths. And I was like, that down payment, because he never put money in his 401k. He was just one of those people who would never do it. And so I was like, that house, I bought that. And so I was able to go back into that situation. And you could say I collected all of my strengths. I was like, I was the woman who started the business that he took. I was the woman who homeschooled the kids and really helped them develop into the people that they are today. I am the woman who did this, who did that. And so I collected the strengths that I had as a person. And I told myself, well, you did that before. It really sucks right now, but you can do it again. And so I would always encourage people to really figure out who they are. Now, this was a process, right? This wasn't like a moment, but going into that process was, I think what really helped me was saying, no, I'm not going to sit here and cry, even though I did do a lot of crying.
I bet.
But alongside the grieving and the healing, I also, I guess you could say, I was my own biggest advocate. I advocated for myself in my own mind that I could do everything I had done before. And this time I got to do it without having someone sabotaging it every step of the way. So that was the first, I guess you could say, point of strength that came to me right in the middle of the most difficult part. And then, so I wasn't working at the time. And I said, oh, I'm just going to go into network marketing. That was the first thing I did. So I actually started selling Beachbody health supplements. And I did the whole thing. So I know that kind of dovetails into what you do. And I bring that up because taking the time, because I was able to, right? So I'm not saying this, I know a lot of people work and you're trying to take care of the kids during that period. And I was doing the same too. We were dirt poor during this, I would say 9 to 18 month period. But I took some money. I was like, all right, I'm going to sell this supplement. It was the Beachbody Shakeology. I'm going to sell this Shakeology. And I did the thing. Like I took my Shakeology every morning. I would do 5K days where I would run 5Ks 3, 4, 5 times a week.
Wow.
I changed how I ate. I knew there was a lot that I couldn't do at that time. Like I couldn't travel, a lot of things that people do with their purpose. I couldn't start a business. I couldn't, do a lot of amazing things. But I was like, I can work on my body. Like this body is with me all the time. And so I took that one thing that I could do and I worked on it. And it wasn't because I was trying to, in a sense, I did want the networking marketing business to succeed. But I didn't realize the benefits that were going to come to me because I didn't make a dime off the network marketing business. Sometimes you do. For me, I did not, right? I know some people do. I didn't. I paid more into it than I got out. But the confidence that I had, because they give you books to read. Here's your reading list. I read all the books. I did the affirmations. I marketed. I DM'd people. All the things that you were supposed to do. Now, granted, this was like 6, 7 years ago. I ate the food. I got so healthy. I thought I was just going to make money. But what happened was I created a body that was able to support my purpose. That's what I got out of that process, kind of like by accident. And I'm so glad I did that because when you go through divorce, your nervous system is so damaged. Like, every time you go to court, you're getting panic attacks. And I mean, I had panic attacks. My ex would serve me these ridiculous accusations. He would go to court and file that I'd done something like 100% lies. But the court will let you file anything you want. So he would make up these crazy lies and then go file a petition to the court based on crazy lies. And then it was on me to prove that they weren't true. And like, what kind of crazy system is this? So I would have like panic attacks, anxiety attacks. It was just really, really hard. But supporting my body with, a healthy diet and exercise. And I'm so thankful for that time. We were living in this little rickety old farmhouse, which is all I could afford in rural Missouri. And it turned out to be a blessing because then I just had nature around me. There were cows and chickens, foxes. And spiders and snakes. So there's that kind of place. But the nature combined with my exercise and my eating just really supported my nervous system so much. It
Yeah.
was so healing for me to be in that place. And that came from me just saying, well, what can I do? What
Mhm.
can I do to support myself? What can I do to start pursuing a purpose? It didn't turn out to be my final purpose. My final purpose is now I'm a life coach, but that was the thing that was right at hand for me. So I did that, and that led to something else, which led to something else, which led to where I am now.
Mhm.
So the first step I would say, like I said, is go back and collect your strengths from who you were before. I went back to when I really started dating seriously at about 19. And I went back to the girl that I was at 19. I was like, who was this girl? What were her dreams? Right. And I went back and collected all of that to start over. The second thing I will say is take good care of your nervous system, take good care of your body. Like I was meditating, I had a vision board, I did affirmations, I walked, I spent time in nature. Really, really does a lot to support your healing journey during and after a divorce. And even now that I'm past all of that, when I get stressed, maybe over work or business or whatever, I'm like, I'm just going to go for a walk. I just get up, I get outside, I get in the sun, I go for a walk, or I'll take a hot bath. Like I learned the lessons of taking care of my nervous system. And so those were the first two things. And then the next thing I would say is a lot of times divorced women, we spend a lot of time thinking about our kids. Our kids give us that very first initial desire to recover and initial desire to rebuild. It's like it's around our kids. And that's really good. I think if that's where you can find your purpose in creating the life that your kids need, do that. And I think I sort of started with that as well, where it was my kids had an amazing life before the divorce, and I was determined to help them continue to have that life afterwards. And so that motivated me to do a lot of things and rebuild our finances. But I think within that, there's also a place that at least if you can equally value yourself with your kids, because the best thing for kids during a divorce is to see their mother thrive or to see their parents thrive. So don't put your kids ahead of yourself during the divorce, even after the divorce. Really take the time to understand, what is it that's going to help me thrive? What do I need to thrive? What do I need to eat to thrive? What will make me come out of this fog and out of this pain so
Mhm.
that I can be a healthier human being in the world? Because then the healthier you are in the world, the better an example you're setting for your kids on how to handle difficulty. Because during a divorce, your kids, I mean, they're watching how you handle one of the worst situations in life, right? And if you fall apart, which you will, but if you completely fall apart and delegate over to them to help you thrive or to, create their own way of thriving, it can really go sideways. So you have to like realize, all right, I got to get some purpose for my kids, but I also need to have my own purpose and the vision that I want. And that brings me to the next thing is you got to have a vision. Like if you didn't have one before, like vision boards are a very simple and easy way to just bring to your awareness what you want in life.
Mhm.
A lot of women are conditioned to just like do what helps other people. We're conditioned to nurture. We're conditioned to take care of other people, enable other people, help other people. Um, Divorce, I think, is an amazing opportunity to reset that to the way it's supposed to be, which is, what do I want?
Mhm.
And you will be shocked at how often I will ask women, what do you want? And they don't know. Or they
Yeah.
can give me 5 things or 3 things. And even then, they're not sure. They feel like they don't have permission to say what they want, permission to want what they want. Like, listen, if you want 6-pack abs, it's okay, right? Because you'll find one group saying, yeah, you have to have 6-pack abs. And then another group saying, well, 6-pack abs is shallow. You should just like, listen, what really matters is deep down inside you, what do you want?
Mhm.
And being able to say it and own it and be confident about it and go for it. So I did an exercise that I read about in Jack Canfield's book. It's called The Aladdin Factor. And he said to sit down and write 100 goals,
Wow.
100 things you want to do in your life. And this can be the hardest thing. When you get to write about 30, you realize how small you're dreaming. And so I do this with my clients. Also, I do it with myself. I had my kids do it. This is like way back in 2016. We all sat down and we wrote 100 goals. Things that we wanted, small things, little things. Do you want a new phone? Do you want to get a makeover? Do you want to go to the mall and get a $50 makeover? You might not be able to do that right now, but put it on your goal list, because it starts to tell your brain that there's more to life, that there's life after divorce. It's like you're allowing yourself to dream again. You're allowing yourself to imagine a life beyond like this dark space. Because when you're in a divorce, I'm telling you, it is like a really dark space. And so you give yourself the opportunity to get out of that dark space and imagine a life that could be better. And that vision starts to pull you forward.
I love that terminology. The vision pulls you forward. Yes.
It does.
Yes, because that's, this, I have this practice that I do on my New Year's, which is my birthday. So it's in November. And so that whole month, I kind of just take for myself to do some personal reflection and kind of map out what I want over the next 12 months. And I literally let it sit. Some things I take action on, some things I don't, but just the energy of it being there. And I post it up where it's around me. I may not even look at it, but it's something I encounter, just because it's on a door I have to go through. I see every year I manifest the majority of the things on that list. And that's to your point, because the vision pulls you forward. It's like, I noticed, like, even with my last one, you do the one thing and it's like a domino effect that creates 100%. The other things, which you didn't even know would happen when you was just planning out the stuff. So I love that. I love what you just said.
Yeah, 100%. There's something about information that we take in, it goes into the brain, it goes into our subconscious, and it's always working. It's always looking around in the world like, okay, where is this? I know there's this thing in there, and it's sort of like this little engine that goes around, and things you might not have noticed in the world before, prior to giving yourself that vision. You start to notice things that connect to your vision. You start to notice opportunities or people that match the vision that is inside of you. It's not like you programmed yourself to go into that vision without even having to do any work.
Yeah, programming. Love it. So you said divorce can be a catalyst for your best life. So can you elaborate on this? Like, how can women build up the feelings of worthiness? Because I know, like, even your story, because I'm on the outside listening to your story and I'm mad, I'm angry, and to have to go through that for a long period of time because these divorce proceedings are just lengthy.
It can take years. Yeah.
That, like, I could see, feelings of being demoralized and just feeling empty. You've given everything, like, how do you build up back that sense of worthiness?
Yeah, so that's definitely a journey. And it's on a case by case with every woman. I'm going to say this. I'm going to try to give a general. This is work that you can't really do on a mass level because every woman's case is different in terms of what they need to hear and what they need to know, and like the things that are going on inside of them. Like for some women, they were the ones that did something that caused the divorce. And so their path to rebuilding their self-esteem and self-worth looks different from someone like me, who it was more of an injustice and something that was done to me. But everybody has value. Right. And everybody deserves love, right? And everybody deserves to be loved and to be valued. So I am an equal opportunity supporter of women who have been through divorce. It doesn't matter why your divorce happened. Like, these are my people. And so the path to self-love can be different. The thoughts that are kind of in the way of you and self-love can be different. I will say self-love, I'd say, and then also what you come into life with from childhood trauma also comes into that. So in my case, divorce was the catalyst. I'll just use me as an example, and people can kind of take from it what they can. I experienced, like a lot of childhood dysfunction. My parents divorced. Their divorce was even worse than mine in many ways, right? There was domestic violence there, like stuff like that, like really just set me up to be in the marriage that I was in. But I think when I was going into my marriage and as an adult in my 20s and in my 30s, I thought that I was fine. So I thought I had overcome the stuff that happened in my childhood, and I was basically living a good life. I was making it. I was high functioning, like good things were happening. Yes, I was married to this guy who just couldn't seem to get it together. But like, in my mind, I was like, I can handle this, right? I can handle this.
Mm-hmm.
What the divorce did was it showed me that, no, you can't. It showed me that I had my own stuff that I had already gotten from like when I was young, and that it needed to be dealt with for me to truly live my best life. So whereas I thought I had escaped and I was doing good, I didn't realize how limited my life was.
Mm-hmm.
So in many ways, the divorce was the best thing that happened to me because it really let me hit rock bottom. Like, wait, what happened? Like I was in the expectation that my life was going to keep getting better and better and better. I didn't realize that I'd been stuck for probably, 10 to 15 years. My ability to impact the world and fulfill my purpose and achieve things and see the world had really been capped by the fact that I was expending all of my energy running around my ex's issues.
Mm-hmm.
All of my energy was being spent fixing his issues, thinking about his issues, trying to keep him from creating issues. And I didn't realize that if that energy had gone into my purpose, I would be in a completely different place in life. I didn't know any of that until the divorce happened. And I was like, okay, this is bad. What happened? I thought things were good. And I went back, I went into recovery. I went into therapy. I did recovery for codependency, which is basically people pleasing, which keeps you taking care of everybody except yourself, taking care of everybody's purpose except yourself. I did therapy. I started following some life coaches online. I eventually bought their programs. And oh my God, it just really, you could say, broke me open.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that if I hadn't gotten divorced, I would never have questioned my life. I would never have questioned what was happening. I would never have questioned where I was going. I think it would probably have been way later down the line, maybe too late, when I would have realized, oh my God, my life just went and I didn't achieve what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, divorce ended up being that catalyst to my purpose. And it came out of the recovery process. So when you talk about rebuilding your self-esteem and rebuilding your self-love, I know a lot of times we see a lot of affirmations on the internet and we see a lot of memes and we try to like just grab the memes. You have to do the deeper work. Like you literally have to go in and say, do I love myself? You have to stop and say, what am I saying to myself? I used to say things to myself like, and I did that for years. Like, what's wrong with you? If something went wrong, I would think, what's wrong with you? Why did you do that? I felt so much shame around not showing up in a way that was perfect. I cared so much about what people were thinking of me. These are all signs of not loving yourself. I would do whatever other people wanted versus, in fact, I wrote a post on Facebook today about external validation, right? Like I sought so much external validation from people. I never wanted people to not approve of me. And so when the divorce happened and everything broke open, I was like, well, okay, I'm me, and I just need to get to know who I am and love myself for who I am. And that looks like, I think even before loving yourself it looks like getting to know yourself. Like just sitting with yourself, something like the goals exercise. Can you sit with yourself and just write 100 goals? Can you sit with yourself and journal? Can you sit with yourself and give yourself the attention that you are looking for from others? We complain that others are not paying attention to us. They're not acknowledging us or validating us or supporting us. But we don't look to see, how well am I supporting myself? How well am I validating myself? How well am I giving myself compassion when I have a problem? These are all the like nitty gritty building blocks of self-love. It's not when you go to get a massage, although massages can be an external evidence of you loving yourself, but it's not in the massage. It's in what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And as a coach, a lot of what I do is like really helping women examine their own personal thoughts, not other people's thoughts. What is in your own head right this minute that's driving you to do the things that you're doing, that's driving you to overeat or overdrink or seek relationships that are not good for you? All those things are signs that you don't love yourself, but the thing that drives them is the thoughts in your head. Thoughts like, I'm no good, right? Like it won't happen for me. I can't do this. I always do the wrong thing. What will people think? I'm too fat. I'm disgusting. All of those things are, if you're thinking those thoughts on any level, they will cause you to show up in ways that are detrimental to yourself.
Yeah, energetic frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how you were talking about even this goal list, right? That's like the step to really get in tune with yourself. After such a long time of giving yourself up for this marriage, this union, your kids,
Mm-hmm.
for decades, how do you even tap into those needs? Like, is there a
Yeah.
physical thing? Like you mentioned massage. Is there like a physical thing that, because you said something like you started to meditate and all of this, like I wonder what
Mm-hmm.
was the first thing that opened up the floodgates to like make all the things fall into place to build up a connection to our own needs and wants, you know?
Yeah. So, oh gosh, I tried all the things. So I tried all the things. Hmm. There wasn't one thing, but I will say that it starts with your thought. It starts with awareness. And there are a lot of tools that can help you gain awareness of what's going on inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first step would be to say, do I even know what's going on with me? When you find yourself venting about the ex or talking about this person or complaining about that, you are staying outside of yourself versus being in tune with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So starting that ability to say, okay, what's going on with me right now? And just like you just look around, what's in my head right this second? It may take you a while to be able to even tell. And then seeking out tools that help you connect with that. So meditation was one, like just sitting down, closing my eyes, and just watching my own thoughts go by without trying to fix them, help put me in touch with myself. When I was in a heightened situation where like my nervous system, you could say, got hijacked by something like either I was getting a subpoena or I was getting served or something like that. Emotional freedom technique was a really amazing tool for me. Tapping, I still use it every once in a while. Something happens, I'm like, ooh, let's break out that tapping chart. And for those who are not aware of emotional freedom technique, it's just it's a technique where you tap on certain pressure points in your body, and that helps your nervous system calm down. And so you can go on YouTube and see that. So tapping was a huge one for me. Like I said, baths, being able to relax, take baths, exercise. Exercise really helped me um, grow my body into a body that could support me in what I was doing. Like, so if you're eating a lot of sugar and you're eating a lot of, you're drinking a lot, it makes you feel good in the moment, but over time, you're creating a body that cannot support you in your growth and in your healing. So, I would say what you put into your body, you can eat foods that help you heal emotionally. But it really just starts with that awareness in that moment where you want to reach for the cupcake, when you want to reach for the ice cream. You can just stop and ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? What's in my head that makes me want to eat in this moment when I don't need to eat, when I'm not hungry?
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that, oh, maybe you got triggered, maybe you got a text that made you feel bad, something might be going on. And then instead of eating to smother the problem, you can do what you need to do to actually deal with the problem. You might need to go do some tapping to calm down instead of eating, and then you can tackle the problem.
Mm-hmm. And this is what we talk about when we talk about holistic health, right? Because
Yes.
you mentioned food and how it affects mood. And there's
Mm-hmm.
so much science behind that. And I've had many guests on the show and even on the upcoming summit, the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit, folks talking about how they're eating raw fruits and vegetables and how that's helped them overcome depression, anxiety, and all of these things. It's because the gut bacteria is changing, right? The healthy
Mm-hmm.
bacteria that eats this fibrous food, and that bacteria affects our mood, our mental state, our nervous system, all of these things. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I 100% believe that happens. So in my modality, I'm certified through the Life Coach School, and you could say the foundational block of how we coach is that your thoughts create your results. So when you think a thought, it creates a feeling in your body, in your emotional system, and then that emotion drives you to either do something or not do something. That's like the
Mm-hmm.
basic breakdown of it. But then there's like a little nuance to that foundation, which is that when you have a feeling, especially for some of us who have experienced childhood trauma, or like you said, have bodies that are in this state that has been created maybe by unhealth, like the gut bacteria being missing or too much of the bad bacteria, or we have a chronic illness, or you have something going on in your body.
Mhm.
What's going on in your body can create a feeling, right? And so you didn't even have a thought. You just had a feeling in your body that could be from your gut. And guess what happens? That feeling creates thoughts, because it's like an equilibrium between your brain and your body. So
Mhm.
your brain thinks, oh, I'm no good. Your body thinks, oh, I'm no good. And it has like a more depressed feeling or depressed mood. But if you eat something like you drink soda, which takes you high, and you have a really low crash, so your
Mhm.
mood is depressed, your brain will create thoughts to match it.
Yeah.
So even though you weren't thinking I'm no good a minute ago, when that crash happens from the sugar or whatever, your brain
Mhm.
will be like, oh yeah, of course I feel this way because I'm no good. So it can actually create a cycle that
A
keeps going.
cycle. Yes. This is what I noticed with emotional eating. That's exactly what emotional eating is. You feel down, you feel stressed. When you feel stressed, you want the chips, you want the junk food to
Mm-hmm.
reinforce that
Yeah.
negative feeling. Then you get heavier and you're like, yes, it's like you're eating the food to match in alignment with how you already
Feel.
felt. So it's like,
Yes.
because and that's the thing with raw foods, like you get light, and that's what happens
Mm-hmm.
when folks start this journey too. You get so light. The biggest confrontation you have is with yourself and your own emotions, because there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
keeping you heavy anymore, right? So
Yeah.
you have to confront it. And so as we're thinking about this, like I want to focus in on joy, right? How do we find joy? Because you're out of the divorce, you're single,
Mm-hmm.
probably ready to mingle, you know. And
Right.
so while you're in the waiting of relationship, right, how do we infuse joy in ourselves so we can be super attractors to people that we
Yeah.
actually want to be in communion with?
Yeah. So actually, so that's the second half of my story. I'm actually remarried now. I've been
Oh,
remarried for 2 years.
congrats.
Thank you very much. Happily. I'm actually doing a series on my podcast on the remarriage club, women who have been happily remarried, because we don't often get a chance to tell our story anymore, because now we're just married again. I'm like, listen, we're a special kind of married. We need to tell our stories. Um, but so finding joy, oh my gosh, like I don't think you find joy per se. I think joy is the byproduct of everything we've been talking about. I think joy is is the signal. You start having little signals that come and say, yeah, you're on the right track.
Mm.
Joy is that little like light bulb that comes on, like you do 3 days of raw food, or whatever program you're on, and you're like, oh, I feel good. It's like this little part in the darkness
Mhm.
comes. And what I want to say is, when you start to have those moments, just in the same way, like when something bad happens and you have a negative emotion, that's a signal that something bad has happened. When you start feeling joy, you start feeling some positive emotions a little bit on your journey, that's a signal. Keep following that. Keep going with that. It's like, when someone changes their diet and they start feeling good, then they're like, okay, I did my 7-day thing. I'm done. It's like, no, no, no. That's the sign that that's the path you need to be on an ongoing basis. So
Mhm.
I think joy is the reward for really recapturing our own selves. When you come back to yourself and you become at home in yourself, you will feel joy.
Mhm.
That's the byproduct. But of course, you want to help yourself all along that along that journey. And so after my divorce, everything was over. I mean, you could say about 3 years later. But yeah, it was about 3 years later. I had rebuilt my finances. I met my now husband, and we dated for 18 months before we got married again. Um, the key to that like space when I was single to when I got married was that I pursued everything that I wanted to do. Like I knew I wanted to get married again, and I was like, it might take me 5 years or something. So I wasn't in a hurry per se, but I was always in a hurry to enjoy my life.
Mhm.
Like I was like, after 17 years of being with this other person and allowing him to like basically tear my dreams to shreds, after 3 years of being in the court and fighting in court over and over and over again, I wasn't going to waste another moment. I was not going to waste a moment of my life. I was like, I need to be enjoying my life. So even when I was dating, I wasn't like really looking at all the guys like, oh, is this the one? It was more like, listen, who's taking me to this live concert? Who's taking me to this nice restaurant? Like it was more about the thing that I was going to get to do with the guy than it was
Yeah.
about the guy a lot of the times. And so what I would say in terms of pursuing that joy when you're in that space where you're single is to pursue your purpose. Like, don't wait. A lot of times women are like, okay, I'm waiting on I'm waiting on my husband so that I know what my purpose is and then we'll pursue it together. I'm like, no, pursue your purpose. And then the person that's meant to be with you in that purpose will show up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So pursue your purpose. I traveled a lot during that time. And guess what? My husband likes to travel. So we travel a lot now. But I attracted a person who likes to travel because I was already traveling. Right. I was already going out and about. I was enjoying nature. I was being healthy. And he this man, he will get his 10,000 steps come rain or shine. And so I attracted someone who was on that level because that was the life that I was living. And when I teach women dating, literally that's what I tell them. They're like, yeah, well, I want someone who's going to motivate me to eat right and go to the gym. I was like, no, if you're not going to the gym and you're not eating right, the person that's going to come alongside you right now is someone who's doing the same thing or someone who will control you and use it to put you down.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go to the gym so you can meet some guys at the gym who already go to the gym.
Right.
You need to be eating right so that you're going to Whole Foods or whatever your choice is. And you're meeting people who are already there. The way to meet that elevated partner is to be living that elevated life.
Mm.
Because that's where you meet. Like if you're not doing the thing, you're not going to meet people who are doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back to kind of like your topic. Pursue that purpose, pursue that life alone. And you'll meet the person who's also doing the same thing.
Yes. Become the magnets.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I mean, the first thing folks should be doing right now is getting out that piece of paper and doing that 100 list you said.
Amen.
Because when you first said 100, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's going to take me forever.
That's the work.
So overwhelming.
When you get to the place where your brain is like, I don't have any more.
Yeah.
That's when you realize how capped you are. Usually around 30 to 50. And then you're like, wait, this is all I'm going to ask from life when all this abundance is available to me. You know, when the divine creator says I can have anything I want. No. We're going to keep going.
Yes. You are the alchemist of your life. You get to create it. I love that. So how can folks find you online and connect with your services?
Absolutely. My favorite place to hang out is on my podcast. It is simply called Dating After Divorce, or you can search everywhere you look for podcasts for Sade Curry, SadeCurry. My website is shadecurry.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Sade Curry or Facebook, Sade Curry Life Coach.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for dropping these gems and helping my community find purpose after divorce. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, for the invite. I really appreciate this time. This has been like the best conversation.